Hey, kia ora koutou whānau. Welcome back to another edition of BHN Big Hairy News to where friends go. George, how are you, man?
Yeah, good. Thanks.
Doing well?
Thanks for having me. Yes.
Doing well.
Yep.
Thanks for being had. Evening, Nala. You okay? Hey, psst. You all right? Yeah, it looks like a freeze frame, doesn't it? Look up here. Move for people. Let them know you're alive. Fuck you, she's saying. Fair enough. Anyway, yeah, how are you, man? Yeah, exciting news. Do you want to share your news with the world? Because that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I got my restricted license today, which was a long time in the making.
Yep. How long did you have your learners? It's always good to know. Like some people have like 15 years and stuff. How long did you have your learners to your restricted?
I had my learners for 6 months.
Okay, so you pretty much
long
once you
time
got
in the
into
making,
yeah.
in the sense that I'm 31.
Yeah.
And have, been driving and stuff.
How come? How come you waited until you're 31?
Just never really got around to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you? You've been in Dunedin for forever? Are you?
Yeah, and I guess Wellington was sort of like we're always walking about.
Yeah. Wellington seems to be far more onto it with the public transport and pedestrian traffic, than anywhere else in the country.
Yeah, we're also always drinking as well, so it's probably a good thing.
Yeah. Well done, you. I didn't share with the whānau last night that I told you this. I think that just before I came and did last night's show, I got a MacBook Pro, and I did that whole kind of, you move your hand to get your drink and you tip your drink, and my half cup of Pepsi went fell onto my keyboard of my MacBook Pro. I went, whoa! First thing I did was picked up the MacBook, turned it upside down, started shaking it, asked someone to run off and get me some handy towel. So I wiped it all upside down and went to the hot water cupboard because we've got a hot water cylinder, and there was like a towel sitting there, and I put it up as a triangle over the towel, so it's still face down, and I haven't touched it today. So I'm going to try and turn it on tomorrow to see what happens. And yeah, pretty annoyed with myself. I guess everyone does it once in a while, but I've got these things everywhere, cups and stuff, and I could do it at any stage. When I was working in radio, some places used to have rules that you're not allowed to go into the studio with any kind of liquids at all. No eating, no drinking in the studio. Everyone ignored them, obviously, but those were the official rules, and I understand why. Hey, tonight on the show we have I don't know what we call it, a feature interview coming up with Hohepa Thompson, who we've talked to before. Actually, I spent a full hour with Hohepa maybe a month and a half ago or so. We did like a full-off special about what he is all about and what he's doing. He's running this initiative called HORIs Pledge. There it is, here, HORIs Pledge. And HORIs Pledge is a direct response to Don Brash's Hobson's Pledge. And as you will know, if you're a viewer of this show of any time frame, we have significant problems with this kind of ideology from people like Don Brash, and David Seymour could be put in there as well, where they're calling for equality, but they only ever call from it based on ethnicity or ancestry. So basically the only equality that these guys want to see is the equality based on race. And they think that when equality is based on, when people get, and I'm kind of paraphrasing their words, when people get special privileges because of their race, it's not fair. But they're okay with special privileges, due to age or gender or sex or, religious affiliation. They're okay with all of those special privileges. But as soon as you come to race, they're like, absolutely not. Shouldn't happen no matter what. And so Hohepa has done HORIs Pledge as a direct response to that. He's been touring the country. He did the North Island a few months ago, and he's currently doing the South Island. And so we basically caught up with them and had a bit of a touch base and see what's going on and see what they're doing. So that's going to be the second half of the hour tonight. In the first half, we are going to talk a little bit about the hypocrisy of the Prime Minister, and that's the absolute best and most accurate word for it. She needs a rocket from someone, because there are those of us who have been fighting this quote unquote good fight around COVID and stuff. And with one photo, she just fucking ruins it and smashes it and gives every bit of information she wants to anyone who wants to work against what the government has been trying to do. With one photo, it's all been undermined, right? All of it. It's just, she should be ashamed of herself. If you're someone who's been kind of supporting the science and this COVID thing, you should be ashamed of her. And it's a complete case of what my mother used to call do as I say, not as I do. I might be sounding pretty harsh, but I'm pretty fucking ropeable about it. We'll get to that story shortly. Most of you have probably seen that story because it's going around the internet at the moment. And the other thing is TikTok. Actually, TikTok, there's been stories about TikTok in the last little while and about it being a fairly dangerous platform. Not necessarily, I mean, maybe it is, I don't know. Not necessarily dangerous when it comes to the content on it, but what the owners of TikTok can do with your data and the connections I'll say allegedly, if you're speaking to a tech person, they'd probably say absolutely, but because I'm not the expert, I'll say allegedly have with the Chinese government. And I did a little bit of deep diving to try and find some facts and figures. And, again, if you're a viewer of the show, I love numbers and I love data. So I did a bit of a look around to see, what is actually TikTok and what is it doing, and what is it? Not what is it like? What is the platform? What can we do on it? But like, what are the concerns and why? And so I'll have a bit of a look at that. Anything else from you, George? Is there anything I've forgotten? Anything we want to mention?
No other updates from my life.
No other updates. Oh, we've got Ayrton says they're in Poland. I wonder if Ayrton's just visiting, or because we've had Ayrton on before. Kia ora from Gdansk in Poland, and Kim responds, Kia ora, Ayrton. Haere mai, welcome. Ayrton's been on before. Ayrton, are you actually always in Poland, or are you just visiting there at the moment and you've picked up your local favorite news show out of New Zealand for a visit? Cool. So let's get into this. The conversation with Hohepa will be in about 20 minutes, and that gives us time to talk about a couple of other things that we said we're going to talk about. So let's just start with this Prime Minister hypocrisy story. Michael Baker, of course, Michael Baker is someone who is an epidemiologist who's sort of been at the forefront of what we should be doing with COVID for the last 2 years, being one of the public faces of it. And then we have a government who just last week, now I believe the word begging was used by one of the politicians. They are begging New Zealanders to wear masks indoors. Other epidemiologists are saying things like we should just get used to always wearing masks indoors if we're not around family members. In other words, if you're not with your whānau, if you're not with your flatmates, if you're not with people you live with, you're in a mall, you're in a restaurant, you're somewhere else, then the standard practice should just be wearing masks. The government refuses to mandate it because that would be a bad political look, but they are pleading and begging, which I do believe were two words that were used in that story last week, pleading and begging. I'm happy to be corrected on that. But if they weren't literal words that were used, it was certainly the gist of what they were saying. They were begging the country to wear masks indoors. And then our mighty leader comes out and, in my opinion, just whips the whole legs out from that whole message and basically gives anyone who wants to go, fuck that, the opportunity to legitimately say it.
Well, one of the big messages of the past 2 weeks from epidemiologists and politicians has been to always wear your mask indoors. But it seems not everyone's listening. Political reporter Amelia Wade joins us now. And Amelia, who hasn't been following the instructions?
Yeah, not even a week after the government virtually dropped to its knees, begging Kiwis to wear their masks more. The Prime Minister has posted a picture on social media of herself, the government.
Well, as you got this photo, we'll have a look at it ourselves. But see the little green check mark there? One person with a mask on.
We'll find
One hero. One hero with a mask on.
General sitting MPs and 120 youth parliamentarians
he'll have a Twitter account already.
in the beehive, and only a single person is wearing a mask. We showed this photo to epidemiologist Michael Baker and he was shocked. He says it's leaders' responsibility to promote mask use, especially indoors, because as a nation, our mask use is slipping to the point that this very same afternoon, Speaker Trevor Mallard emails the entire parliamentary precinct telling people to wear their masks, though he told News Hub his terse words were not connected to the Prime Minister's post. A spokesperson for the Prime Minister says that Jacinda Ardern had been wearing a mask but took it off briefly because the photographer asked.
And look, fuck that. Right, you're the leader of a country who is pleading with people to wear masks indoor, and you think taking a photo with 150 people because a photographer says, would you mind taking it off? You go, oh yeah, sure, I'll take it off. I'll just go against the whole messaging of this government. I'll just take it off because a photographer asked. I know it's a silly thing to say, but you know, there's that old adage of like, you know, would you jump off a cliff if your friend told you to do it or a friend did it? I mean, if she'll do what a photographer asks her to do, what is she going to do next year when she's coming up against Christopher Luxon and he asks her to do something? Oh yeah, he asked me to do it, so I'm going to do it. It's just ridiculous.
But this is not a good look because COVID-19 is killing Kiwis every day. It's crippling our businesses and overwhelming our hospitals. Our leaders should be leading from the front and using every photo op to normalise our most effective defence, masks.
So let's just get straight to some of the comments that are coming in because we'll address them. Now, look, let me just say, if you're watching us on Facebook, when you mention a comment, it doesn't give us your name in our system. I know it'll say your name on Facebook, but in our system it doesn't. So I have to put it up and it comes up just like this for us. So we don't know who has put this in, but someone on Facebook, probably watching us on the Dunedin News website, I would think, or Facebook page, I would think, it says because it's bullshit and she knows it. I disagree with that. It's not bullshit because that's what the message is from epidemiologists the world over. And I think, once again, maybe it's looking for political points. Jay says, Luxon's been maskless all over New Zealand and all around the world. There's been zero outrage. Yeah, you're right, Jay. And the reason there's been zero outrage is he's not the one on his knees begging the country to wear masks, right? When someone goes, and I'm not saying actually the Prime Minister has literally said this, but the Labour government has literally said that we please, even in schools, wherever you are, if you're inside, wear a mask. That's Labour. That's not national. So yeah, that of course, no one's showing outrage around Luxon because he's not the one driving. We should all be wearing masks inside. Jay goes on to say, Ardern have been wearing a mask the rest of the day, but took it off briefly for a photo at the request of the photographer. And Kim has the perfect response here, George, which I'm sure you'll know from Anna Brooks, where Kim says, a magic air. Now, if you're just joining us, you're not sure what magic air is. We have Anna Brooks on fairly regularly to talk to us about what's happening in long COVID and COVID. Magic air is the theory of, you walk into a restaurant wearing a mask and then you take your mask off because apparently all around you is magic air, where you can have your mask off and you've got magic air around you because the COVID won't come across from the person sitting opposite you or from the table next to you. You've got magic air around you. So obviously it's being fairly facetious to say it that way. But Kim, it's the perfect point. So let's just have a look at the photo. I mean, we've just seen it, but I've got a bigger version of it. So this is the photo, and here is the Prime Minister. I wonder if can I zoom in on this? Control, zoom in. Oh, there we go. There's the PM just there, maskless. And look, I don't know if I even buy that she took it off for a second, because I guess in theory it's a 50-50 chance. But there's no mask in that hand. So, there could be a mask in the other hand while she takes it off. But either way, I think the reporter made a very fair point that if this government, if this Labour Party is on bended knee saying, please wear masks, then you should be using opportunities like this with a huge number of young people to model it's okay to wear a mask in a photo. For some reason, the Prime Minister has decided to put herself under the photographer and go, oh yeah, okay, I'll take my mask off. There'll be some bullshit coming out tomorrow about how I held my breath. You heard it here first. You wait till you hear her say, and I held my breath. It's like, well, actually, the point of you asking us to wear masks, you as in your government, and then you not modeling that is actually just as bad. It's terrible. It's I mean, those of you again who have watched this, I've been ardent about this. Please wear your mask, do this, it's best defense for you and for the people around you, sort of thing. And look, she's just given ammunition to every critic of that idea in the world, as you've already heard through Facebook. And it's utterly ridiculous. She's utterly ridiculous. And it's an utter failure of a decision-making process. I think I've finished my rant. George, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, I'm not as fussed. It was awesome to see that guy that kept his mask on, because I imagine I buy the sort of taking it off briefly for the for the photo. I imagine this happens quite a bit. Maybe if they were outside, it would have been good. But yeah, I guess the point is basically that it's the youth parliament that I'm sure probably to a man or to a person probably pretty serious about mask use, and it's a prime minister that's supposedly pretty serious about mask use. I guess that's the real kicker, right? Is that they're not they're not showing that with their actions, right? They're not replicating that with their actions.
I get it. The risk factor goes up when you do things like when you're in a room with someone for 15 minutes. It could literally be 30 seconds. But I'm just going to go back again to the reporter who said the modeling. And I think that's an incredibly valid criticism. That now anybody walks into a store, they'll just go, oh, fucking Prime Minister doesn't wear a mask when they're inside. Here's the evidence. We talked about yesterday when Christopher Luxon had to explain what he meant, when he said, well, what I meant by that comment is, and I was like, you've lost the narrative. If you have to explain your commentary, you've lost the narrative. And like, if you have a photo going out that's completely contrary to your narrative, i.e. wear masks inside, then again, you've lost your narrative. So it's just, I don't know. I mean, if I was her advisors and if she'd made this decision on her, I would be ropeable, because it could have literally put what they're trying to do back a long way. This one photo, that's the kind of weight that some people will put in it. And I guess I'm putting a lot of weight in it because I'm not for her, not using the opportunity to normalize wearing a mask in a group photo. The other thing is, and I know because, as I just said, your risks go up like when you've been there for longer. If it's just 30 seconds and off, there's probably a very low chance that she'll catch anything. But imagine if in 5 days she tests positive. I mean, it'll be a terrible look for politically as well as personally and health-wise. But it's just, yeah, I just think that's such a poor decision. And the only correct response here, and we've done this before when we were talking about Christopher Luxon and racist comments on his Facebook page by other people, right? We gave the only correct response. The only correct response here is for her to mea culpa and actually absolutely what is apologize. Sorry, I was reading a comment at the same time. Is apologize for making a grievous error, and we won't see it again. That's really the only way out of this in any way, shape whatsoever. David saying, check your BHN Twitter announcement for reply showing PM in Parliament not wearing masks. Someone replied to me on Twitter. I'll have a look, shall I? I'll have a look then. There's a reply from someone apparently. Sorry, this is good radio, isn't it?
So she's standing up giving an address to the Parliament. So she's taken her mask off up at the sort of that lower part of Parliament in front of where the speaker sits.
Yeah, but I mean, so the thing about masks, right, is all of us have increased our risk. Yeah. People going back to the gym who weren't going to the gym when there was more of a lockdown. People are doing more things out and about. People are making speeches and taking their mask off when they're making a speech, but not when they're in the audience. I mean, that's reasonable in this current age of actually us increasing risk factor. But that photo op with 150 people, I mean, that could literally could literally be a super spreader event. Not saying it's going to be, not saying it is, but it could. If 10% of all those people end up having COVID in a few days' time. It's bad optics, and bad optics is not smart in politics.
Yeah, I guess practically, materially, in terms of the COVID, considering that they're youth parliamentarians, and they're from every corner of the country as well. What you say about the spreader event makes it,
and look, I'm not trying to be a drama queen. I know, short time frame, only off for 30 seconds. If that is all true, these people are together. Maybe all of them took their masks off for 30 seconds for the photo and then all put them back on. I don't know. But, politics is so much
what happened.
But politics is so much about optics. Like, it's so much about what you can look, and it's so much about what your opposition, be you the opposition and government, or be you the government and the opposition, what your opposition can then do with those optics. And she's just given the opposition from her she served it up on a plate. See, the Prime Minister doesn't think this is serious. She's potentially in a super spreader event. She just doesn't wear a mask. She doesn't care, like that Facebook user said, because it's bullshit and she knows it. I don't believe that, but that's a perfectly fair conclusion to be pulled from this photo, and people will. So her optics are terrible, and it's going to possibly damage them politically and potentially damage the thing they're trying to achieve in the health system as well, potentially. I know that sounds big and like it's the worst thing in the world, but maybe I'm being a little bit dramatic, but it's still not necessarily incorrect. All right. Look, I mean, this is what I'm saying. I'm being a little bit dramatic. I can't see this impacting anyone's mask wearing decisions. Well, I think that's naive. What it will do is will solidify people's mask wearing decisions. People will feel emboldened. We've heard that word around Trump. People feel emboldened to do things. People will now feel emboldened to be able to go stick it with your mask. Not even the Prime Minister wears one. The people who would use this as an excuse not to wear a mask, like who were previously not wearing masks, fine. But it will embolden them. And why would anyone who wants them to wear a mask, even if they choose not to, do something that would embolden them? All right, let's move on. We want to talk a bit about TikTok, and there's a story out today from One News. TikTok researchers in Australia. TikTok can check your location every hour. Tech researchers' analysis of popular social media app TikTok's source code has revealed some alarming things about how accessible your personal data is. Let's have a look at the story.
Check the phone of anyone under the age of 25, and most will have TikTok installed. Hey there. The app may devour hours of spare time, but there are fresh concerns over what else the app is taking. New Australian research revealing just how much data the app is scraping in the background.
So you're dealing with a fundamentally insecure security environment on the back end, and then an overreach in the amount of data that they're taking on the front end.
Researchers from Internet 2.0 say in some instances, the app's able to check your location every hour, asks to access contacts unnecessarily often, has persistent access to your phone's calendar, and can even map what other applications you have on your phone.
All of that data is available and out there, and people could use it to create identities.
While other platforms like Facebook and Twitter gather data, there have long been concerns about TikTok having significant overreach. Researchers flagging concern over a server connection to mainland China, where there are significantly different data laws.
I just think it's a losing battle over time. So for me, I would ban them. Remembering Facebook and Twitter and all of those things, WhatsApp, you can't use those in China because those companies refuse to hand over their information to the Chinese government.
That's a really important point. So other social media apps aren't available in China because they refuse to come under what the Chinese laws are, which would give the Chinese government access to more data than those apps are prepared to do. Now, TikTok is a Chinese app, albeit their ISP is based in Singapore. But if that means if it's being able to be accessed, and we'll talk about this a bit more, in China, that means the data that's collected by it comes under a very different set of rules than, for example, other social medias, which is why they're not available in China.
TikTok's parent company's rubbish
Here's
this
the IP.
and says its IP address is in Singapore, and it's categorically untrue to claim it's communicating with China. It also says it's following industry practice. Australian cybersecurity groups are sounding the alarm, though.
Parents would be screaming from the rooftops if a school gathered all this extra data on a student and then sent it to the government. But that's exactly what these platforms are doing.
That's a very, very good point and a very good way to think about it. If it wasn't something scraping data off this and making it accessible to a government, but it was a person ticking boxes or checking in where child's going to be every hour and then passing that, there would be a huge outcry. I think that's a really smart way to look at
New
it.
Zealand's Privacy Commissioner will be meeting with TikTok representatives in the near future to discuss how the company collects data from young people.
There you go. Anything you want to share on that before we jump into this a little bit, George?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that the Chinese government is a step too far, but it's all right if Facebook and Twitter and all the others, Google, have the data. Why the cybersecurity industry sort of like it's sort of like almost a deterrence discourse. It's like the problem with social media is Chinese involvement rather than the fact that these corporations farm data in the first place. And there's a few other things about this that we can get into as well.
I heard a commentary today, kind of not along the lines of what you're saying, but I thought it was really interesting about when things become big. I mean, the right wing in general don't like big government. The left wing in general don't like big monopolizing businesses like the Facebooks and Twitters of this world. And it seems that maybe the person I was listening to was talking about, maybe the issue is with things getting so big and kind of becoming, in social media, I guess it would be becoming the marketplace or becoming the place that's essential to you so they can then scrape all your data. Because you're right. I mean, it's still a huge issue to do with Facebook getting everything off you that they can and then being able to market it all back to you. I do wonder if there's a difference because I mean, I don't want to sound ignorant, but I don't know if that's therefore got a connection to the US government or US government therefore getting that data as well. But it seems that could be the difference, with at least what people are saying about TikTok, that the data is going straight to the Chinese government.
Yeah, the other issue people have with TikTok is they say that it advances the foreign policy interests of China by getting rid of like TikToks about, Xinjiang province, the Uyghur concentration camps and that sort of thing. But again, we can do and it sort of is an annoying whataboutism. But, remember when the Ukraine war started and the White House gathered together 40 big TikTok influencers at the White House to brief them about US strategic interests in the region, right? To make sure that they had the most authoritative sources on the issue, right? So that I don't see any difference between the US briefing 40 TikTok influencers on how to communicate about the Ukraine war and TikTok advancing the foreign policy interests of the Chinese government. The other example would be like Twitter getting rid of any post that mentioned the Hunter Biden things, and they said their excuse was that it was hacked material, which I see as dangerous, right?
Because we have
whistleblowing and
whistleblower laws. I
yeah.
mean, it's interesting how you say the difference between the White House, informing TikTok influencers being similar, or I don't know if you think you said the same, but similar to, influence from the Chinese government. I guess the one difference is
not same. Probably not.
The
same.
White House are giving it to an intermediary who can then choose what to do with it or not. The other one's coming straight from the equivalent of the White House.
A platform, yeah.
Yeah.
The Chinese example is about platform censorship, whereas the other one's the users of the platform.
The other thing about TikTok, which has worked so well, it was sort of the perfect storm because COVID came around and that's when it really kicked off. Because people were sitting at home looking for things to entertain them, and they did. I got some facts and figures here about TikTok in case you'd like to know about it. It's had 3 billion downloads, just about 60%. There you go. 57% of TikTok users are female. 43% of users are aged between 18 and 24. 32 are aged between 25 and 34. So therefore, what's that? That's 75. So 3/4 of the users are aged between 18 and 34. Only 3.4% of TikTok users are older than 15. 138 million monthly active users are from the US. 21% of Americans said they used TikTok in 2021. TikTok users spend on average 52 minutes a day on the app. There's also information not on this page that I've read elsewhere that says 4 to 15-year-olds, so they're not even in these stats here, but 4 to 15-year-olds in the US spend 80 minutes per day, 80 minutes per day on TikTok. 90% of TikTok users visit the app more than once a day. And ByteDance. Now, ByteDance is the company that owns TikTok. That's the company that's said to be owned by the Chinese government, to have links to the Chinese government. They deny it. That's the accusation. I guess we'll leave that to be figured out absolutely at some stage. Their collection of apps, including TikTok, has a total of over 1 billion monthly users. Now, in America, the FCC commissioner has written to Apple and Google. They want TikTok removed from their site because they're concerned about the links to the Chinese government. Some countries have banned TikTok. India has banned it. They banned it in 2020, talking about the concerns that it was prejudicial to sovereignty and integrity of India, defense of India, security of state, and public order. So that's why they banned it. There's other countries who have talked about banning it or gone through bans and then made it free again. And the one thing that I think is most interesting is the TikTok that I see and you see in the Western world see is not the TikTok that's seen in China. So the TikTok that's in China, I don't know how to pronounce this, is called Douyin. Douyin. It's the same, but it's called Douyin. That's there, if you're watching, is the Douyin symbol. That's the TikTok symbol. Now, if you're a TikTok user, and I've got a TikTok and I occasionally look at it, it's it's a source of entertainment. You'll know that your TikTok is full of people dancing, people miming, just pure entertainment. Use it as much as you want, use it as long as you can. In China, there is a maximum use of Douyin for 40 minutes per day by kids. It's in the actual app. And under 14s can only access the app in the evenings between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. And the other thing is, and I'll scroll down to, there's some differences here between Douyin and TikTok. But one of the big things is, remember this, Douyin is TikTok in China. Yeah. So TikTok in China, any content that improves personal skills and contributes to overall growth in everyone's life can be regarded as pan knowledge content. With over 1 million pan knowledge content videos, it accounts for 20% of the total broadcast volume on Douyin. So 20% of the total broadcast volume on Douyin is about people's personal growth, everyone's life skills and contributions as well. Current categories include life skills, popular science, humanities and arts, education, sports, and workplace. Most videos on Douyin have a computerized voice that narrates, and this automated voice offers no personal touch. Douyin's keyword search algorithm ranks accounts with a larger number of followers and likes higher. The content from verified enterprise accounts ranks higher than content from basic accounts. So it pushes through official accounts above, your random user with a viral moment. Whereas TikTok in the West, TikTok video, so this is talking about 20% to do with science and improving personal skills and contributing to overall growth. Let's just say in the US, but around the world, TikTok videos mostly have the poster narrating their own views. Due to this, TikTok has led to the popularity of many amateur singers, rappers, dancers, and artists in the international market. TikTok top posts are arts-based, featuring lip syncs and trending dances. TikTok's content ranking algorithm is based on a comprehensive evaluation of the number of likes, comments, reposts, and engagement rates on a global scale. So nothing to do with the verified accounts. So basically, China doesn't want TikTok. So they have a different version of TikTok, which is quite different to the TikTok that we have. And if the country where TikTok comes from doesn't want the TikTok that we've got, I think it's a fair question to go, why? The other thing, and this is coming out, this is 12 months ago, but TikTok just gave itself permission to collect biometric data on US users, including face prints and voice prints. So this is the biometric data that some people are saying, some experts saying we should be concerned about, and it's why some countries are thinking about potentially banning it. This is part of the terms and conditions. We may collect biometric identifiers and biometric information as defined under US law, such as face prints and voice prints from your user content. Where required by law, we will seek any required permissions from you prior to any such collection. But if it's in your terms and conditions and you tick yes, then they've got your consent. So look, I guess I don't want to beat up too much, because basically you are a piece of data to a social media app. You are valuable to them. The way social media apps make money is they sell and use the data they collect from you to sell shit back to you. So we don't want to say, like, in some kind of weird xenophobic way, China bad, they're doing all these things. They all do it. But I guess with that, two things, like with that connection to the Chinese government directly, and also with China saying, we don't want the TikTok that you've got around the rest of the world, it does raise some interesting questions that I think probably need to be addressed. George?
Yeah. I mean, it's totally fair enough. I just would always caution sort of questioning the questions and rehashing them and chucking them around and flipping them upside down and that sort of thing, because often things become so sort of naturalized and just seem normal, right? The data collection by Facebook and Google and connections to the American government and American interests and all that sort of thing becomes so sort of taken for granted that they no longer become questioned like an adversarial government like the Chinese government would be.
Right. So I just wanted to do a bit of I don't even know if I call that a deep dive. That might be a bit arrogant, but a bit of a look at what TikTok is and why people are starting to talk about, maybe governments need to start looking at what TikTok is doing in their country. Kim says, should probably get rid of my Huawei phone. David says, TikTok is hosted in Singapore and USA, but metadata is being sent to China for testing analysis purposes. Ayrton says, even though I mainly subscribe to predominantly left-leaning content, when checking out YouTube Shorts and Facebook Reels, for some reason, I still get bombarded with right-wing channels. I don't know much about that one at all. And yeah, look, we're going to move on to the next topic now, but I mean, I think if you want to be really safe from this sort of thing, if that is you, there's really only one way to be safe from data scraping and data mining if you're going to use social media, and that's to have, like, I've thought about it today. Like, I've got another phone that the kids use sometimes. I could set up that phone as my social media phone, and then when I'm not using it, turn it off. And then this could be just my phone. But other than that, really, it's quite difficult to be removed from that world. So it probably comes down to the fact, and I'm not suggesting this is a defense to what's happening with TikTok if it does need investigation, but probably the only way to remove yourself from that world is not to be involved at all in any social media app. And that also probably goes for many websites as well that use cookies to track what you're doing. And it's probably, actually, I could go one step back and go, if you really want to avoid that, you should probably avoid the internet, because somehow, somewhere, in some version, your data is going to get scraped and mined and then used by a company to sell shit back to you, or to track and trace what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah, just before I go to David's comment about right-wing material on his on like YouTube Reels and that sort of stuff, there's really interesting research out there about how the YouTube algorithm has just been pushing right-wing material for years, right? The whatchamacallit, Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson and that sort of stuff. Worth a read at some point.
Cool. Maybe we should have a look at that. All right. Before we move on to the very last thing, Carl says, at this point, people are happy to trade their privacy to get a free product. Yep. That's pretty much it, Carl. That's pretty much what we're doing. And
we're forced to.
Well, we choose to. I mean, if you want to use the internet, you're forced to. Yeah, sure. Fine. But I guess the major difference with the concerns around TikTok is the idea of it going straight to the government. I mean, if we knew that Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and whatever else was literally scraping all of our data, and rather than giving it to their advertisers, which is bad enough, was giving it straight to the governments, we'd probably feel a bit different about it. Most of us, I'm not saying that's okay, therefore, but that feels like that's the demarcation line between other social media and TikTok. So
that's exactly the thing that's naturalized, that's made okay. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, George. We're going to go into a pre-recorded interview now with Hohepa Thompson, so we will catch you when we catch you. I appreciate you joining in.
See you, folks.
Congratulations on the license. Well done, you. I was going to I was going to do like a little bit of a co-hosting here with Nala, but she's gone. Oi! Get on your mat. Come on your mat, please. That's where you sleep, down here on your mat. Thank you. Lie down. Thank you. Appreciate it. Right. So we've already talked a lot about Hohepa Thompson, the Hori, artist and activist and all-round good dude. I'll just play out the interview, because actually within the interview we do set up what Hobson's Pledge is and what HORIs Pledge is, and you'll get it from there as well. Again, you're welcome to share comments. If it fits in and I can make it happen during the interview, I will put them up and lay them over it. If not, I'll bookmark a few of them, and when we come back at the end, I'll still be here and I will share some of your thoughts around. But have a listen to what Hohepa is all about, and what HORIs Pledge is all about. And other than that, I will see you in a wee while after the interview. So you've got the trailer on the back at the moment. I've got some photos here of the trailer for people who don't know. I don't know if you've got signage. Tell us what happened yesterday, because obviously the winds, there was reports this morning when I got up in Otago that winds are up over 100 k's an hour. What happened to you guys yesterday?
Yeah, it got pretty hectic, man. Like, it got quite emotional. We nearly went over. So,
wow. Like wheels off the ground when you went over?
Yeah. So, it was pretty next level. We kind of shook us up a bit. We're like, fuck. We knew it was going to be windy, but nothing like that. It was next level. So it gave us a big, massive shake up. Oh, fuck. And we stopped, and we were probably about 8 minutes out of Ashburton, and that happened. So we were just like, fuck, what are we going to do? So we literally drove about 20k an hour all the way on the grass strip next to it.
Wow.
All the way into Ashburton, because we're like, there were trucks getting blown over, there were trees all over the road. It was next level. Like, we're really lucky, like seriously lucky. We kind of decided to have a breather last night and go have a few beers and calm our nerves.
Because that thing on the back of your truck is basically a sail, so I get it. But you got to be hardy when you come to the South Island, bro. That's what it's all about. You got to be a hard man.
Yeah, we knew. I remember talking to you last time, and you said, just be careful, like, when you come here. And I was like, yeah, I know. And then after last week, you guys had all that crazy weather. And then it looked like it was going to open up for us when we came down, and then kind of come Monday, it switched again, and we were like, and I was like, fuck, we might not be able to make it to the West Coast, which is, so we're just trying to plan out our next trip, like how at least we'll get down to Bluff today, and work out from there whether we're going to go to Wanaka, or maybe the roads will open up tomorrow. I'm not sure, but it's not looking great. We've lost the day already.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing about this kaupapa is to actually get to Mohua, up to, where Tasman came into the bay.
Gotcha.
And we're going to have that corridor with, mana whenua up there, and have their corridor, e pānaki, like their chat, which is going to be real important from when we go to the Netherlands next week. Yeah.
So worst case, like it's from down here up through Wanaka up to the West Coast is a long drive. Like going through that Haast area, it's a beautiful drive. It's real Lord of the Rings stuff, but it's a long drive. But if what you're saying is your objective overall, the biggest objective is Mohua up there on the top, was that northwestern part up by Nelson to the west of Nelson, is you could always just come back up State Highway 1, couldn't you? I mean, it would be a shame, but if that's the objective, that could be done. Yeah,
so that's kind of plan B. So we almost left the trailer yesterday in Ashburton, and we're going to keep trucking down, because we knew that it'll be, you know. But then we thought if we get up early enough, we can get down, we can shoot what we need to shoot, and get maybe perhaps on Wednesday get over, and spend like a good day. But I don't really want to be traveling at night. At the moment we've already had our first brush. So we're like, if we can get to Mohua, I'll be happy. But we might have to kind of take another day and actually go back home on Saturday instead of the Friday that we were trying to get there. But it's all good. We'll work it out.
Hey, maybe what we could do is just maybe take one step backwards and explain what we're actually even talking about. We're kind of having a bit of a chat now, but we haven't even, I mean, you and I are chatting because we've chatted so much in the last since you came on for that full hour. We've been in communication, but we should probably let the rest of the whānau
Let's
into the
give
conversation.
some people some context of what the fuck we're actually up to.
I've got, I don't want to trigger you here, but I want to bring up Hobson's Pledge because this is a response to it. And for people who don't know, Hobson's Pledge is a group of New Zealanders who are saying this. New Zealand is a great nation built on a foundation that all of us will be assured the same rights before the law. Now, the people who watch the show, they already know that I think that's horseshit, but we'll keep going. Hobson's Pledge believes in the importance of moving forward as one to allow us to focus on what unites us as a nation. It's so funny. Like, I'm not trying to take the piss here, but as I read that, what unites us as a nation, what I read in my head was what whites us, WHITES, what whites us as a nation, which kind of is a little bit what Hobson's Pledge is all about, isn't it? And overcome the challenges that would seek to divide us. Now, this is their main, I guess, selling point to the public. There's a lot of conjecture here, but I'll read out what they've got. We will continue to advocate for equality and unity. Our focus is based to build awareness to prevent legislation, policy, and regulations that will differentiate New Zealanders based on their ethnicity or ancestry. So basically, what they're saying, right? They put out this idea that they want us to all have the same rights before the law, but all they're really talking about is the same rights before the law based on ethnicity or ancestry, so based on race. Because as you know, Hohepa, and as others know here, as soon as I talk to someone like David Seymour and I go, but what about people with special car parks who need them because they're disabled? Oh, no, that's okay. What about 65-year-olds? Because that's us being treated differently under the law based on disability or based on age, and they're okay with all those differences. The only thing they're not okay with is differences in law based on race. And you can see it very clearly on their website that actually when you go to some of the things they've done, and as I've said before, they're very poorly made memes here, is they're not even about the law really. They're about New Zealand, not Aotearoa, because that's a big legal issue in New Zealand. Legal issue? Like, obviously not. It's just a trope to their audience. So what this is from my perspective, it's just, you know, the word white supremacy gets bandied around a lot at the moment. So let's just call it an alt-right, far-right, wolf in sheep's clothing to say those bloody Maoris, why do they think they're getting something that the rest of us aren't? That's what Hobson's Pledge is. Now, what you've done, and you went around the North Island last year, I think it wasn't it, or the start of this year, is your response.
A couple months ago, yeah.
Okay, your response to it is HORIs Pledge. Now you call yourself HORI, username HORI as your art, sort of your pseudonym in the art world. Of course, it's a derogatory term from when I was a kid. If you called someone a HORI, it was like a not quite New Zealand's N word, but certainly a derogatory term around Māori folk. You've sort of owned the word yourself and are using it, and you started up HORIs Pledge. So now, unless I've set up something incorrectly, I'm happy for you to correct me as to how I've just synopsized Hobson's Pledge, but I've set it up as to how I see it. If you're cool with either saying that's how you see it or however you want to add to it, and then tell us what Hobson's Pledge is. Oh, sorry, HORIs Pledge is.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. If you look at kind of Seymour and Brash and these type of people, it's always the race debate that separates everything. It's always that kind of cordial. Once that comes up, everything changes in terms of the way they view things. You know, when you talked about the ages and the disability chat, but as soon as it starts talking about Māori, whether it be with our health or anything like that, all of a sudden it's not fair.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that when you look, 200 years ago, what happened to our people, we can definitely say that wasn't fair.
Yeah.
So, when you have people who say that kind of shit, it just, it speaks kind of volume, or really of what they don't understand. So when we challenge these people, and we constantly do, it's just this is what HORIs Pledge is about. It's using what they've already created. We do this a lot in our artwork. We kind of use the colonizers' tools against them. So we use this kind of we've used HORIs. Obviously, looks at Hobson's Pledge, but in this one we're kind of trying to give more insight and mātauranga knowledge around the way Māori view the world, which is a very hard thing to do. And we kind of do it. We kind of offer comparisons, so people who don't quite understand our world can take something and might be able to actually see it if they see the comparison of what it's like for us. And we do that using the artwork. But yeah, it's very, when you're talking about the New Zealand not Aotearoa and the constant kind of campaigns that Brash has been a part of, that they are all entrenched in racism. So that's the root of the actual problem for most of these groups, is they don't actually notice, they don't even realize that it's actually racist at all. And
well, let me jump in, because I wrote down, as you said, it demonstrates what they don't understand, right? And I wrote down what they don't understand on my little notebook down here, my little pad that I write my things on. And I kind of prefaced before by saying the word white supremacist gets bandied around. If this demonstrates what they don't understand, if that's actually bullshit, like if they do understand it, but they're just playing the game of not understanding, then they're white supremacists, right? Because they're actually going, we actually get the concept, but we're just going to ignore it because we're going to further our own agenda. If they don't understand it, then they're kind of ignorant bigots.
Ignorant,
now, neither of those two things are good, but I guess you never know someone's heart, really, unless it is obvious through their words. So it's somewhere in that of ignorant bigotry or white supremacy. It's in that field somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing with Seymour that's different is that he's actually he can whakapapa to being Māori.
Yeah.
So he's actually using that race and weaponizing that race card and using it as a ploy, really, to get, like almost like he's giving people, but it's not, he doesn't understand the world and what he's talking about. He'll claim it for political kind of gain. But he has no, you can just tell. You realize in this world, when someone's doesn't have a clue what they're up to or what they're talking about. And in that case, I think he's quite dangerous. And when it comes to Brash, I think it's just ignorance. Like, he actually just doesn't have any idea. And whether he wants to have an idea or not, it's thing is, I think Seymour's quite smart and chooses not to have an idea. But right. I think that he's only dangerous because his words, he's obviously an intelligent guy, and he uses this kind of thing to just get votes. He knows playing that race baiting the rednecks of the world is going to get him votes. And so yeah, when it comes to the political side of it, it's no good when it's actually a Māori that's playing that's doing this to their own people.
Yeah. I mean, I think the other thing about the ignorance is when you point it out to them in a incredibly logical connection, they go, "Hey, what do you mean?" Like when I said to David Seymour about the car parks, right? like, well, disabled people, that's discrimination against able-bodied
Yeah.
people because they get special car parks. And his response is, yeah, but that's because they need it. I'm like, wait, but hang on, Māori Health Authority, you know, Māori health outcomes, lesser than the general population. What's the difference between they need a car park or they need a pension or they need a, you know, a certain health initiative? And it's just, it frustrates me because, and I think you were actually watching the stream when I talked about this last time where I went, if we got the word race or Māori and we just said group X, you know, of whatever, group X needs help for reason Y, then what we do is we help because of reason Y. Now, whether that's a person in a wheelchair and a car park or a ramp going into a McDonald's, or whether that's Māori and health outcomes, it's still group X who needs help because of people Y. But these people, all they'll see is, well, yeah, but that's a race issue, but that's a race issue. I mean, if it was people who were 7 foot and of all ethnicities who needed help to have doors heightened because they kept getting concussions, people would go, well, I can see that logical connection, but they don't seem to be able to see it when it comes to a group of people based on, you know, an ethnicity. And it just reeks of that whole, it does, it reeks of bigotry because they're not so stupid as to not understand that.
Yeah, and it's hard because it's what we, you know, if you, you know, that's a great comparison to tell people. You know, that's an awesome way, but they'll look at that and they'll still go, no, it's different. And then you're like, no, it's not different. Just think about this logically. It's exactly the same. If X wasn't brown and Māori,
let's say X was women and Y was breast cancer. Then we do something. It's not something I'm going to suffer. But if X is women, female, and Y was breast cancer, no one would have a question about it. No issues whatsoever. But if you slip Māori into there and then have an outcome that's not as good in the house, all of a sudden it's no, we need to be the same. It just makes no logical sense.
Yeah, and I think what a lot of people forget is, you know, 200 years ago is not that long ago.
Yeah,
you know, like, you know, when colonization happened here, this all happened to our people, and these kind of different issues that affect us now, they all stem from that. And it's not very long ago that happened. They're like, oh, you know, that happened 200 years ago. But if you fuck a puppet back, that's not long ago. That's kind of 5, 6, 7 generations ago. So, you know, the trauma that's happened from there that has come down the line, whether it has affected us in that way, whether it's with our health, whether it's with all these different issues that kind of Māori are dealing with, a lot of it stems from right at the beginning when Pākehā came here. But when you say stuff like that, a lot of Pākehā think, well, no, it's bullshit, you know, like, and you're like, you're trying to explain to these people, like, this is seriously like what happened, and this is the effects of that is still here today.
And again, if you just follow logic, I mean, there are people living in New Zealand today whose grandparents would have been born in the late 1800s, right? The late 1800s is only, you know, a few decades after the treaty was signed. Like my dad's 82, so his parents were probably born in the early 1900s, which means his grandparents probably were born in like 1870, 1880. So it's not that difficult to get some elderly people thinking about their grandparents may have been here in 1850, 60, 70, that kind of time period. And if we think very carefully that if that grandparent born, let's say 1870, I'm picking a date, suffered some kind of ill that impacted that elderly person's today parent because of the way they were raised, and then that parent today was raised in a different way because it impacted the person in, let's say, in 1930 or 1940, it's only 3 gaps back to the 1800s about an issue coming down through a family. So, you know, I think something happened not too long ago. There was a conversation going on in America talking about how since the Holocaust, the Jews are still suffering because of what happened to their family in the Holocaust. And everyone accepts that. You know, everyone accepts that. That was 80 years ago. It's not that long between 80 and 100 and what are we at? near approaching 200, 180. It's not that far different. So if everyone accepts that, especially Jews in America, say in a New York suburb, are still feeling the effects of the Holocaust in the 1940s, to think about how Māori were treated in the 1860s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 1900 could still be impacting people today. It's logic, it's a logical possibility at least.
Yeah, and then if we take this back to this kōrero, and we take it even further back to the 1600s, like 1642, when Abel, that I've learned, that's how you pronounce it, Abel, came into Mohua, we are still affected by the time, that name, that Māori didn't have that name, but, that has become like this massive, constantly known as New Zealand, which doesn't have any connection to Aotearoa whatsoever. So like, that's something tiny, like minuscule, that happened 18,000 k's away. Him and his map makers decided it looked like a province in the Netherlands and decided to label it that. And when Cook here, he called it New Zealand. This must be where he came in, 100 or so years later. And then this is kind of still the chat that we're having now today, is around whether we should try to acknowledge the names that are here before Pākehā came here. So, and we've noticed it so much, especially down south, about all of the constant names, especially in Ōtautahi there in Christchurch. It was Elizabeth, Queen Park, this and there was so many different, things named after people that never ever been here in their lives. But it's kind of like, you look at Auckland and all of these towns, some of these earls and these people never ever once set foot on this land. But there's, over the time it's kind of been, that's just what it's called. So we're trying to have a chat here around trying to acknowledge our Māori ingoa and our names, hence Aotearoa, but also at the same time it's acknowledging our history and our mātauranga, like, and our knowledge systems and how that was passed down. So there's quite a big chat around mātauranga Māori, which is just Māori knowledge around ingoa and our history, and the way we were able to pass that down to people. And just because it wasn't written in a book doesn't mean that it wasn't true. We just have different ways of how we pass it down. So we're trying to do the same thing, as have comparisons around that. But the last kind of piece of the puzzle is to actually go to the Netherlands and find out, and go to Zeeland and find out what they think about this whole kōrero, which I think adds real kind of, mana to the whole story, is if we're able to kind of go track back to where Abel came from, go to actually into Zeeland, and talk to historians there about what may have happened when they were actually naming the space. And we're going to have this kōrero when we're in Mohua, with hopefully get into the dock office and cruise up there and talk to Ngāti Tama and Mohua Hapu up there to have their kōrero on it, of what actually happened there. So what was the hapu again? Tumata Kōkiri, eh? Yeah, so that was the hapu that were there when he came in, and they went out and met him. And I was just kind of talking to Kaumātua from up there about, the pukai that was kind of was blowing as the waka went out to him. And then they responded with a trumpet. And then our people just thought, oh, wow, this is on. So, so that's people got killed. And that's when, he named it Murderer's Bay, pretty much. So, but he never actually got off his boat at all. So it's just trying to fill the gaps with the narrative from our side of it, so we know that happen, and then try and kind of work out between the historians on that side to see how it all happened. But it's, if you simplify it back, a guy come from a country that wasn't from here, named the spot, and then left, and we are still continually calling this space New Zealand when there was already a name that was here. So that's the kind of whole conversation we're trying to nail down. And yeah, it's been interesting. I've learned so much, like so much. And it's been pretty amazing actually. Like having the kōrero, we went to Te Pukahiwi o Kupe, which is the Waido bar. And we had kōrero from a guy there, and he told us the kind of another version of what happened. So it's just trying to keep our knowledge about it like up. The more we know, the more we can kind of tell the story of Kupe and his wahine who actually initially named Aotearoa.
You're obviously where you are. There's obviously pre-record because we can see the lovely, fine, rainy daylight weather in the background. Are you planning on stopping in Dunedin as you drive through?
Yeah, we kind of trying to work it out.
Okay, I'll tell you where to stop. I'll tell you where to stop, and I'll come up and see you. I'll bring the dog up and come say good day.
Oh, cool.
There's a park just off the main highway. There's a park. I'll tell you about it once we finish recording. But my last question is, and maybe there's a 3-part answer here. What do you want to achieve once you've finished your traversing of the South Island? And what would be a good metric or a good outcome for you once you've done that? Like, how will you measure this? And then what about after you go to the Netherlands as well? What do you want to see or get or educate people? Or like, what's the outcome going to be once it's all done?
So we realized after halfway on the North Island, because we did all around Tika Maui, is that this is actually kind of more of a documentary.
Yep.
So we think that the final outcome is actually a documentary that we're gonna make.
Cool.
Yeah. So because we've filmed so much of this whole Haringa, and we've filmed most of down the south what we've done, and there's so many people that we've talked to and had kōrero with. I think we to kind of have a final art piece, to kind of do it, is that it actually will be a film. Yeah, we've kind of got a good little crew to make this happen.
Yeah.
And we've been really lucky. So that's going to be the end result. After the South Island, it's actually for us to gain all of that knowledge from people that we've interviewed and talked to.
Yeah.
Because the more mātauranga that we have about it, it enriches the whole story that we're trying to do. And because the weather's been so shit, we've been able to stop in. People have been like, "Hey, what have you been up to? Oh, come, we'll make you a cup of tea." And so we've just cruised and stopped at people's houses.
Cool. Man.
We've just jumped in like, "Hey, how you going?" and had a cup of tea, had a yarn. They've talked to us about their whakaaro on the whole kaupapa. They've given us like kind of little tips about traveling south and what you might expect on the way. It's definitely he ahua rere we will call it. Like, yeah, it's a different feeling down here. We definitely feel it, as opposed to it was on the north. So it's all good. We've had a few kind of names, like eyebrows and someone telling us get fucked and yeah, but it's all good. And we've also had heaps of people like beeping out to us, and even last night at the pub we were telling people about what we're up to, and it's just interesting the contrasts of reactions that we get. And going to the Netherlands is massive, because I'm not actually the first person to do this. Well, maybe in the large scheme of what we've done, but like there was Te Whai Harawira that did it probably like 30 something years ago.
Right.
She was in the Netherlands and she went to Zealand, and the same kind of same corridor was to go. She was the kuia that told Helen Clark to sit down at Waitangi.
Yeah.
So pretty staunch. So we're trying to hopefully, before I leave to get on the plane, as to have a corridor with her next week. And the thing was kind of the same question, you know, what were your intentions when you got there? What was your karo around what you wanted to do? But also for me is, if you could do it again, you know, she's in her 90s now. I was like, if you could do it again, what would you do? You know, what would be something different that you would do? So I'm real interested to hear what she says, whether that happens before I go or after. Hone said, like, yeah, you want to probably get there, you know, get that before you go. I think it's a nice way to think about if you could do it before you actually left, as opposed to after the fact. But yeah, the end result will be a doco that we'll hopefully try to edit and show next year at the Māori Film Festival in Otaki. So that's the end goal. But yeah, there's been a lot of artwork made from it. There'll be heaps of different kind of influences that have come to me to kind of, you know, the artwork that will come from it.
Yep.
So it's kind of just researching a project really, but just doing it on a big fucking with a massive car and shit ton of petrol and flights all over the world to try and make it happen.
Good way to do it. Hey, Hohepa, it's been as always an absolute pleasure to talk to you. When we wrap up here, I'll give you a good place to stop in Dunedin. It's a pretty central area called the Oval, which is a massive, like in Auckland, it would be the Auckland Domain. It's that kind of area in Dunedin, and it's just by the motorway to head down south anyway. So I'll let you know where that is, and when you're driving through, you can fire us a text, and I'll come out and meet you out there and say good day as well. And other than that, dude, all the best with your trip. I mean, I said this to you 2 nights ago before you left, actually. The Christchurch region, to be safe on the road, so be extra safe on the roads. And it's incredibly exciting to hear that just some of the art that will come from this will be something visual that we might all be able to see on the big screen at some stage in the future, because it sounds amazing already. Yeah, no, it's going to be, we've done a pretty good job of shooting it. I think it was bigger than what we ever thought, to be honest. Yeah. I think the way we'll show it. And if you're in Dunners, you go to Forsyth Stadium and our billboard's there for the next week. Oh, okay, cool. So you're leaving the trailer at a Forsyth bar? No. There's a digital like Go Media one that's up there. And that should have started yesterday. So if you're around, tell your mates to go get a photo and check it out. Definitely will. All right, Hohepa Thompson, the Hori. Thank you, sir, and we'll catch you. We'll probably catch you within an hour or so here in Dunedin. But be safe out there, and we look forward to finding out through your Instagram or through your website what's going on. If people want to find out more about what the trip is, probably one of the easiest ways to do it is the Hori on Instagram. Lots of photos there about what's going on. And other than that, be safe on the road, and we'll talk to you real soon. Cheers, brother. All right, kakite. All righty, mighty. Now, there are several, I've just got to do 9 things at once now by myself here. Several comments that have come in. I'll get to those in a second. But also, whilst we were doing that, story, we showed this before. I think it's been expanded on. So let's get to your comments first of all from what you've just seen. Someone talks about I do it for you, talks about that looks much better. No North Island, in other words, just a picture of the South Island. Their One Nation, One People motto is actually derived from the definition of Ein von ein Reich, ein Führer, one people, one realm, one leader, the motto of Nazi Germany. Hobson's Pledge is a like-minded groups always operate under the false assumption that the big, like the Big Bang, nothing existed before colonization. Pansu says, I've never heard the car park analogy with stuff like this, but I like it, works really well. Yeah, look, I mean, I don't mean to bang on, because people who have watched what we do will know that these are some of the things I say, but the word discrimination in and of itself is not a bad word, right? It's how it's used. We discriminate every single day. And the car park one is a perfect example. We discriminate against able-bodied people by giving disabled people car parks closer to the supermarket, whatever it is, because they need it. And what groups like HORIs Pledge do is they try and make it sound like, oh, you know, we're all one, we're all equal, we should be all equal under the law, yet the only legislation they want to change involves race. And when I say to people like Don Brash that I have, and David Seymour that I have, things, give them that example, or say, you know, when you're 65, you get a pension. You know, people in their 40s can't get a pension. That's literally discrimination based on age, or you know, similar comments. Then the response from David Seymour when I said this to him was, yeah, but there's good reason for that. And what they can't see, either willingly or not, is sometimes there's good reason for discrimination based on race. Now, I don't actually think the Māori Health Authority is necessarily discrimination, because much like breast cancer for females, sector of society needs help in a certain area to do with health, it gets provided. If Māori are that sector of society, what's the difference? I mean, there are various, I should have looked this up, and, you know, the stream of consciousness thing has kicked in a bit, meaning I'm not prepared enough for this, but I'm sure there are some ethnicities around the world that suffer various illnesses above and beyond other ethnicities. I don't have the numbers for you or exactly what it is, but let's say the ethnicity is called B, and they suffer from multiple sclerosis more than any other ethnicity for whatever reason. Then it would make sense in the area where B lives to put special funding in for B, because they are a higher risk of multiple sclerosis or whatever the thing is. No one would question that. But when the outcomes for health for Māori are poor, to say driving more money into that region and that area because outcomes currently are poor, why would anyone question that as well? Unless you have an agenda where you're happy to receive or accept or put up with discrimination based on all sorts of other areas, but you must try and level the playing field as you see it based on race. It's just, and that's why I say the reason it's racist, or if I'm being generous, I say sounds racist, is not that people like David Seymour are calling for equality or being equal under the law based on race. It's that he's only calling for equality or being equal under the law based on race. He's not calling it in any other area. He's more than happy with all the other examples where there's discrimination based on other protected classes, like sex, like age, like disability, you know, like sexual orientation, like religion. You know, as I said to Hohepa there, you know, has anyone ever said, look, in the religious world, we must all be treated the same under the law? Of course not, because in the Catholic Church, as an example, you only have male priests, and we accept that as discrimination based on a religious belief. No one worries about that. No one challenges that. No one's trying to change that law. They're only trying to change laws when it comes to race. That's why it's racist. I don't think I can say that much more clearly. Epigenetics are fascinating. Trauma and how it affects the DNA genome. David says, compare European history of warfare. At the same time, they were definitely more barbarian than is portrayed today. The other thing about what's happening in New Zealand, though, obviously, is the Crown didn't conquer Māori. They shook their hands and signed the document. So it's a bit different here. It's a bit different here from anywhere else in the world. And we should look at it with a matter of pride, but we should also look at it as a contractual arrangement. And if, and I'm saying if, because I'm not a expert in this area. I need to get someone else on to tell us about it. But if one part of that contract is not being upheld, then all of us should be of the same mind that if you sign a contract, if you make an agreement, if you whatever, whether it's a verbal agreement in today's language or a written agreement from 200 years ago, then you need to stand by it no matter what. And if one of those areas, one of those parties to that agreement is not doing what the agreement says, then it needs to get sorted. It's pretty simple. Hey, I did want to just share one other thing to do with the I did just want to share one other thing as well to do with Jacinda Ardern, because this tweet came through whilst I was doing it, bringing attention to a couple of things. The first one is, it seems that oh gosh, not being able to click on it. Anyway, that's from Facebook. It seems that there are other images where all of the youth are masked. Maybe they've taken them off for this as well. But one of the things that I found particularly interesting and particularly damning is, for example, Helen Clark. Indeed, shocking to see that the unmasked youth in Parliament. What on earth? I didn't mean to click on it. What on earth are they thinking? New Zealand is in the middle of a pandemic surge. So Helen Clark, I mean, you can't get much more kind of in politics, at least left, than Helen Clark, the 9-year Prime Minister of the Labour Party in the first decade of this century, saying what the fuck in her own words. Winston Peters, define hypocrisy. The PM and a number of MPs who like to lecture Kiwis on wearing masks, then walk out the door, and this is what they do because it suits them. And this is what I'm saying about, it's about optics. That's completely fair for Winston Peters to say that. And the Prime Minister has just given Winston Peters the ammunition to actually say that. And I think even David Seymour, what he had to say. It sounds like the Prime Minister may have got confused. He may have thought that she was still overseas, David Seymour told Newsub. She has asked New Zealanders to follow the rules at great cost. The least she could do is follow Parliament rules herself. So that's interesting as well, because when you're in Parliament, you're supposed to have a mask on. So that's actually a rule in Parliament, as well as what they're begging for us to do. Former Prime Minister Helen Clark said it was shocking to see all the unmasked people. And look, all those criticisms are fair. And I'll say again, even if it was 10 seconds, even if she held her breath, whatever, the optics that she's given and the fodder that she's given to the opposition and to anyone who wants to criticize her are now completely valid. And it's just taken the legs out from underneath what the Labour government has told us they're trying to achieve. All right, we're done. Thanks, guys. We'll see you tomorrow night from 10 p.m. People talking about more things coming in. Oh, there's lots of comments. But we can't get to them now because it is already 11:20 and we're supposed to do an hour-long show, and we never do. So we're going to go. We'll see you tomorrow night, team, from 10 p.m. Remember, share our shit. Follow me on Twitter. That commentary or that conversation with Hohepa is already on YouTube. You can see it as an individual and share it around if you want to do that. And we'll be putting up some more content from tonight's show onto YouTube and onto Twitter and onto Facebook as we go through. Look up Big Hairy News on Facebook. We've got a page there now. It's very small, but it's growing because we've only just started it. And other than that, we'll see you tomorrow night from 10 p.m. Thanks for joining us tonight. Be safe out there, especially if the weather's still crazy. Be well, and hooroo to you.